Well, hello everybody. How is it going? Welcome. It is the RambleCast. This is January 29th, 2025. I'm your host, Cody Toombs, and with me I have Corbin Davenport,
Hello.
enthusiastic as ever. Um, so, man, it feels like one of those weeks where stuff happened. Stuff definitely happened. Just not really things that we talk a lot about.
No, I think this is going to be the pattern for a while.
Yeah.
Is everything is exploding, but not really in the parts that I'm qualified to talk about. Except just in sheer frustration. But we don't have to touch the poo necessarily every time. Except for the first
Yeah, I was gonna
thing.
say no. We're definitely touching the poo on this topic.
We're briefly poo touching, and then we'll stop touching it.
Uh,
Um,
yes, and promptly wash our hands with something else that actually also kind of touches on the poo touching, just a little bit less.
howdy, Austin. How's it going?
How's it going?
Um, yeah.
So
So this actually isn't. Where's the article that okay. All right. So, first thing is, Trump still wants to put tariffs on imported chips.
yep, it's a genius
Um,
move. Super smart man move.
Supposedly to incentivize companies to just build chips here in the US because that's a thing that we have the capacity to do and definitely doesn't take like decades of consistent infrastructure and government funding like what Taiwan did and what
Mhm.
China's done that we haven't really done. We did the CHIPS Act, which like gave Intel and Foxconn some money to build like a couple fabs here,
Wait,
which so far are still not building a lot.
was it Foxconn that got it? I know TSMC
Oh,
got it.
yeah, I think it was TSMC, and then well,
Intel definitely
I
got it.
well,
We know way too much. Intel got it. I know TSMC got it. Um, I don't I don't believe Foxconn did because does
yeah,
Foxconn
I
make
think
chips
I'm
anywhere?
n- no, I think I was thinking of the factory they were going to build in Wisconsin that then they didn't.
Okay.
Um, which was I believe a Trump admin thing. Anyway, Trump wants to put import tariffs on chips, which means that like every electronic immediately gets more expensive because we don't really make advanced silicon in this country.
Yeah, really,
Um,
the only chips we make in this country are pretty much Lay's and Frito. So
yeah, and we don't even make a lot of them.
it's true.
I think all those factories are in Mexico. Um, so the trying to see, there's specific numbers. So in a speech, Trump said he wants to return the production of chips to the U.S., saying we don't want to give them billions of dollars like this ridiculous program Biden has, referring to the CHIPS Act. Um, and instead, the incentive for manufacturers will be they will not want to pay a tax. Um, so yeah, this will just mean that like all electronics get more expensive. Maybe some companies will eat some of it. Like I imagine, like Apple will probably be okay eating some of it because their profit margins are so crazy.
Hmm.
Um, they'll maybe the next iPhone will just be like more expensive out of the box, but they might eat it for a while. Um, I saw one report that said like a lot of electronics would actually get double tariffed because it would be some chips made in one country and then get imported into China and then more things are built in China and then shipped out. Like I would imagine that would be an issue for iPhones because a lot of iPhones are built in like Vietnam now. And the actual chipsets would still be made in Taiwan. I believe. I think Apple is still just buying up capacity in TSMC's Taiwan plants. I don't think anything in the US is going. So potentially some stuff is a lot more expensive. It depends on what the actual rate ends up being. One CTA report from last year said that the proposed tariffs could increase prices on laptops and tablets by 46%, game consoles by 40%, and smartphones by 26%. And that was, based on the estimated tariffs and what Trump was talking about at the time, and he might want to raise that more. So we'll see. I don't know. I'm not really sure if this will happen or will happen to like the extent that Trump wants it to happen, because like obviously this is very stupid. It wouldn't work. It makes everything more expensive. But also, to the degree that we've seen the tech industry just eat the whole boot already with the Trump administration, I have a feeling that like Tim Cook can like be enough of a suck up to ask for exceptions to this, and maybe some other big companies too. So I don't know. Also the issue here is like, the CHIPS Act and some legislation before that started setting up fabs in the US so that we could manufacture our own chipsets. But I think TSMC's main facility in Arizona or whatever is still not building a lot. I think I saw one report that said Apple might use chips from there in some like Apple Watches or something, but they're not building like the super duper high end fabrication processes that like the Taiwanese factories are doing. Intel's fabs are going horribly. Like there were reports months ago about how like Nvidia was interested in maybe building stuff with those facilities and other companies, and all of the sample productions came back and were like garbage. So Intel's still not really doing a lot with those, and I'm sure that's why they announced they're going to spin it off, because that's not going well for them. Yeah, gonna be interesting. Again, I'd hope this doesn't happen. As funny as it would be for a PS5 to be $1,000, and for that to be very obviously linked to Trump, this would also affect like a lot of very critical electronics in like healthcare and stuff that would have much worse results if this went through. So I think this would be funny for a lot of product categories, but I would also not like, the hospitals to have to buy a new laptop for like $5,000.
Okay, so I'm going to start by saying something that stick with me for like a good 30 seconds here. Trump said something right. One thing he said was right. Giving billions of dollars to Intel and TSMC and whomever else absolutely was going to do it wasn't going to do a thing. It wasn't going to accomplish anything. That's 100,000% accurate, as we could see from the fact that it did nothing. Now, and granted, the CHIPS Act was relatively recent. I mean, it's 3 years old, I think.
Yeah, like there's still like not enough time to judge this, really.
Yeah.
Because all these factories take forever to build and staff and train and everything.
Yep. And so for that reason, I'm not going to say, I can't say that it's a sure thing it was never going to work, but also we've seen how Intel has been for the last decade, and they're kind of getting a lot of stuff wrong. I don't think that a foundry was actually going to turn out well under Intel's leadership. TSMC, I think, probably would have turned out better, but only because I assume the company recognizes that if they were going to get free money so that they could also locate in the US, then that's just great for them. So yeah, I think they would have been building something, but from what I recall, their plans were also on a very small scale. They were not building something that was going to be able to handle like even a small shred of US demand. They were going to build something that would have been kind of a neat little side project. And maybe I'm wrong on that, but I do remember hearing something to that effect. So yeah, I'm just kind of leaning in the direction of saying he's right in that giving a bunch of money to those companies was not going to do it. I'm not saying that we shouldn't give them money to do this. I'm just saying that alone was never going to achieve building out that sort of infrastructure in the US. Okay, now that one part where I briefly agree with Trump is over, and now the reality of it is tariffs are not going to work either. In large part because the incentive and the motivator are on the wrong parties, or more or less. I mean, whose products get more expensive under tariffs? Now, certainly, Intel chips that are made by TSMC, yeah, sure. Apple chips made by TSMC, obviously those, yeah, their products will go up, but so do tons of other products. Smartphones, drones, NASA's. I mean, I'm literally just looking around at various things on my desk. Video game controllers, consoles, all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like really anything that is like moderately advanced technology.
Yeah.
Because we have a lot of fabs in the US, but they're all like very old architectures. Like the stuff that's going in some cars, not even all of them, because some of them need like the crazy AI junk that like NVIDIA's developed.
Well, let's remember one of the more recent locally, I believe this was locally produced, but one of the more recent things was OMAP 4. That's recent by our standards.
So your TI-84 will not get more expensive, but it was already $100. So I don't know if that's really gonna help anyone.
Well, see, I was gonna use Google Glass as the example, but yeah. So here's the problem. All these companies, you can point to all of them. All of their products were going to get more expensive with tariffs. But what do they do about that? Like, they could try to go buy from Intel and Apple. Well, Intel, I guess. And theoretically a local TSMC plant, but those don't really exist, or they're not good enough, or they're not manufacturing at the capacities necessary. So what do? Their products just get more expensive. That's it. That's the answer. Their products get more expensive, and that's just how it's going to be for really the next 10 years, if not longer. And that, of course, assumes that these tariffs stay in place. We'll just go on the hypothetical that they would. They obviously wouldn't, but that's a separate subject. So all the products are just going to go up in price anyway. That's just how it is. Like, we're not going to have we're not going to have domestic capacity to reach that. So all the products simply get more expensive from basically everybody. If that's the case, then by the time we have domestic production anywhere close to what's necessary, the US market is just simply going to understand that, yes, now video game consoles do cost $1,000. And yes, you want to get a laptop, the base price is going to be $900 for a piece of like a POS beater laptop. And if you want something decent, the decent starts at, I don't know, let's say 1,800. That's where this reality goes.
I mean, I've definitely heard like years of like people in Brazil complaining that like they can't buy anything new because everything is taxed to high heaven if it's not made locally, and that's why like PS2 was going strong there for long after its reign ended in other countries. Yeah, like and like it's not even like the electronics that will get more expensive. It's like every company that has to buy this stuff.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up next.
It'll be internal cost for them, and they'll pass it on to consumers. And like, if we've learned anything from the past couple years, it should be that companies don't even need a real excuse to raise prices. They love doing that anyway. They love doing layoffs without a real excuse. It's like, oh, it's, unprecedented times, COVID, that here's a very real excuse that they can use to jack up prices even further and do more layoffs because our costs went up because we're Google or Nvidia or Microsoft or whatever. We need to buy server hardware constantly, or we have like fleets of laptops for our employees, or whatever. So this would just be a really, really bad idea to do, and it would absolutely I don't think there's a single company. Again, I'm not a business major guy. I'm not a political analysis. I'm not a manager, but I don't see how any company would look at this and say, "Oh, we better start working on our own chip factory," because by the time they would start, realistically, this would probably be over.
Mm-hmm.
Because even if Republicans stay in power, after Trump's term, or Trump stays in power, who knows? Like, it would get reversed. I'm assuming this would get reversed before his 4 years are up because it's so stupid. But I don't know. So like no one, I don't think there's a single serious person who's like, yeah, we got to start building factories so we can avoid getting taxed like crazy, because this situation will change somehow before like that you can formulate a serious plan for this. Because again, like, it took Taiwan decades of consistent, serious government funding to turn into what it is now, making chips for the rest of the world. And it would take a similar investment for the US to do that, and we're not doing that. We did we did the CHIPS Act, and we're like, all right, we're good. That's it. That's seemingly all that's coming for a while, because Trump's idea is tariffs. So
yeah,
Kirby said might be a good time to buy an M4 Pro. Yeah, honestly, like, I probably buy electronics now if I felt like I needed more for the foreseeable future. Again, like, I don't know what will happen here. Part of me thinks this will just get tossed out, or like severely limited, or he'll pass this, and then like some states will start a lawsuit, and go back and forth in the courts for a few months, and then get like most of it removed. Like, I don't know how this stays in place long term, because it's insane.
What I have, my suspicion is, and you're gonna laugh at this because it sounds and feels ridiculous, but at the same time, it also sounds and feels totally on brand. I have a feeling at some point um, they're going to give some sort of a timeline for when tariffs will go into effect, and it's probably going to be to the tune of I don't know, like in 2 months or maybe in 4 months or six, whatever. It could be short term, it could be long term, but I think I think they will basically pre-announce tariffs will go into play, and um, when that happens, exactly what everyone is saying and doing right now will happen. All of a sudden, there will be a buying spree. A shitload of people are going to suddenly go, "Oh, I got to get a new laptop. I got to get this. I got to get that," because prices are going to go up in 2, 3 weeks, months, whatever. Um, so all of a sudden, there's going to be a big spending spree. We're going to see stocks suddenly spike because everyone's going to be like, "Oh my God, look at how much everyone's selling. It's so amazing. It's like Black Friday." And then, right before the tariffs go into effect, or maybe they will go into effect, but I have a feeling it'll be right before they go into effect, all of a sudden, they'll get talked out of it. And then Trump will say, "Oh, well, I think I've got a better idea," or we're gonna do it a different way, or I don't know. He'll make up some other excuse, or maybe he won't even say or do anything. He'll just say no more tariffs, and that it'll just be the end of that whole discussion. And in the meantime, he'll then say, "But look what I did for the stock market. Look what I did for buying. I stimulated the economy." And it's literally going to be he stimulated the economy by effectively lying. I could see that actually being what this is. And I'm just spitballing one wild, wacky possibility. I sooner think he's actually totally serious about the tariffs, but there is an angle of this where maybe this is literally just a look, let's prove that we can get people to buy a bunch of stuff.
I don't know. That feels a little too far into the Trump's doing 4D chess thing that
Yeah,
analysts love to do. I don't think he's capable of that. What I do think is sort of related to that, and it's possible, is he is very serious about this in the same way that he has been serious about
building a wall.
like cutting all federal funding for everything. But it will go the same way where when he tries it, it will get like thrown out by courts or something, and then he'll be like, "Oh well, I tried," and then he'll move on to next week's like culture war nonsense. So I can see that happening too.
Yeah, it certainly could. If it does go that way, I think also like those same things, it's going to it'll happen, and then it'll get reversed, and then he'll try it again in a month and make it happen that time, or halfway happen, or it's going to happen totally differently because he'll say one thing, but the actual way it's written down will be completely different, because that's also a thing that has happened with him in the past.
Sure.
So, it obviously this is weird, wacky, inflating or waving arm inflatable man moments. So, who knows? Oh no, Greenland TSMC plant.
Yes, Carson said hello. Hi, Carson, and
How's it
also
going, Carson?
Greenland TSMC plant. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like Greenland doesn't. There'd be many things that he would build in Greenland before that. Anyway, so yeah, that's where we are. Might happen. Don't really know. Everything's kind of crazy and on fire. Try to be kind to yourself and others, and maybe do what I've done in the past couple weeks, and just not look at the news that often, because you know what, all this is going to happen regardless if I'm paying attention or not. and I just need to tune out for a little while and come back later.
And one of the
Um,
ways you could tune out is, of course, by going on TikTok. Yes,
yes.
I
So
forced transition, but
so this is a very silly thing. So TikTok was briefly banned in the US and then it came back. However, the Apple App Store and Google Play Store still they don't let people in the US download TikTok because I I think just out of like a super abundance of caution, like they really just don't want to deal with potential fines coming from this. Because like technically the ban is still in effect. The executive order like pushed the enforcement of it. Like basically the executive order that reversed the ban is just like a we promise we won't sue any company you know, hosting TikTok infrastructure or hosting app downloads for it, which is maybe not the most solid ground. So I guess Apple and Google have decided they don't really want to deal with this right now. So this has led to a fun thing where um, people are listing iPhones with TikTok installed on eBay and other phones, but I think mostly iPhones
it
because
really
you
only
can't
makes
download
sense
it.
on iPhones because you can
Yeah,
sideload on Android.
yeah, I assume like APK Mirror still has TikTok. Um, but the I know this kind of thing has happened a couple times. The main one I remember was when Flappy Bird was removed from the app stores, and there was a fun thing where people were selling phones with Flappy Bird still installed, and it was a meme of "you can't get it anymore, don't delete it." Um, so a lot of the listings are there's a lot of listings on eBay. There's been a lot of news articles that are I linked to one CBS News article in here, and they have the headline. Well, if their website wants to load, I can see what the headline is. TikTok loaded phones are selling for thousands online after momentary ban. And there's a lot of other articles like that. It's not clear to me any of these are actually selling.
Mm-hmm.
Because like if you just think about it, like not even paying attention to what's going on eBay, TikTok was like one of the most popular apps before it got banned. So statistically, there are a lot of phones with TikTok installed. This is not a limited resource. Carson said, doesn't eBay policy require phones to be factory reset? I don't know that honestly. I didn't get to because like there's so many things before that where this doesn't make sense that I didn't get to that part. But it wouldn't surprise me. Oh, Austin said APK Mirror doesn't have TikTok if it's a US IP. Interesting. So the thing with eBay is you can go on eBay and see a lot of if you search for TikTok iPhone, there are a lot of listings for like hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars. Now, if you filter that down to sold listings, that goes way down. So now people buying these. From what I could tell, some of the listings were marked as best offer accepted, which is that thing on eBay where you can offer any price and the seller can take it. So I can list an iPhone with TikTok for $100,000 and someone could offer me $5 and I could accept that, and then it would say best offer accepted. Some of them say that. Some of them say they were sold, but eBay does let you like back out of a sale before it ships, so they could have done that, or the seller might have been, pulling a fast one and wouldn't
Buying
do
their
it
own.
themselves. Yeah. So like I this is just a joke. Like people are just being fun and
Yeah,
stupid. It's fine. It's not real.
it's for the
There's
meme.
a lot of misleading. Yeah, yeah. So basically, there's just like a lot of misleading headlines about this that have been kind of annoying. Um, but no, and unfortunately, it doesn't seem like there's I did find a lot of phones. Again, that say they're sold. I have no way of knowing if they're actually sold or not. I didn't try like contacting anyone over this because it's not that important. But there were also a lot of phones just being sold for like what an iPhone normally costs.
Yep.
So, you know, that kind of thing. Austin says so it's crypto. Yeah, I'm selling my used iPhone with TikTok, Trump meme coin, and Flappy Bird still installed. I'm gonna make enough to retire.
That that
So
suddenly this reminds me of that story of somebody had a crypto wallet on like a USB drive or something like that, but they lost whatever password they had on it. So they ended up selling the drive. I have no clue what they sold it for. I don't remember if it was like $1 or $10,000 or whatever, but supposedly the wallet had some fairly substantial amount of Bitcoin in it. And so they just sold it basically saying, if you ever figure out how to get into this, good luck. You can get rich if you've got some way to crack it, but I don't, so I'm giving it up. I know nothing about it beyond that, but I do remember this was at least a story. And truthfully, I'm not even sure if it was real. But
I mean, yeah, there's been a lot of similar stories
yeah,
where like someone put a hard Bitcoin wallet on a flash drive or hard drive or something, and then 10 years later, when Bitcoin is worth like 100,000 times more, they're like, oh, I forgot what my password is.
yeah,
I have like infinite money on this, Toshiba hard drive that got ripped out of some PC, but I can't get to it.
oh,
Anyway,
the,
Bitcoin is real money.
yeah. That's
Uh,
why only scammers are after it. Anyway,
So yeah, that's even though this is very funny, no, phones with TikTok probably aren't selling for thousands of dollars.
unless the phone
So
itself was already thousands of dollars.
right, then maybe. But also it's not factory reset and it's used. So that's driving down the price a little bit. Okay. So next thing I'll talk a little bit about Final Cut Pro because I finally used it for something. We talked on a previous ramble about video editors a bunch of times, and then a while back, Final Cut Pro updated to add. Actually, I can find the article for this. The magnetic mask in Final Cut, new Final Cut update, where oh man, where is it? Final Cut Pro update.
I've got one.
Okay. Yeah, this was November. Final Cut, which is Apple's video editor, they added a feature called Magnetic Mask, where you can select an object in a video, and it will create a mask of that object for the rest of the video clip. So it's very helpful to remove backgrounds from clips, or like take specific objects out. It's not like a content aware fill thing. Like it can't to my knowledge there isn't a thing to like fill it in. It's more just like you're removing the background, or taking out that to have a different object in front of it or whatever.
Kind of.
But yeah, so I said I wanted to try this out because I got Final Cut ages ago when I got Logic Pro, and I haven't really used it for much. But I want to try this out because it seemed cool, and wanted an excuse to use Final Cut for something, and also to generally freshen up on my video editing skills because it's been a long time since I did anything with there. So I made a video, which I'll link. I'll put this in the YouTube chat. Cody will probably not show this on stream because it will get copyright struck immediately, like it did on the channel I put it on. But I made one of my favorite YouTube genres is the character in different media genre of edits, where like there's a channel I really like that put the Terminator in Cyberpunk 2077, where like it's Arnold like inserted into a gameplay of it where it looks like he's in that world and talking to the characters. And I think that's really fun. I love all those videos. They're very fun. So I wanted to try to make one of those. So I edited Stitch from Lilo and Stitch in Zack Snyder's Man of Steel movie, replacing Superman with Stitch. And the video is about 2 minutes long. I ended up the interesting thing here is that the magnetic mask, because like the reason I wanted to do like this specific thing is because all of those like character in thing videos use masking a ton. And I've always seen from the people making those videos that like the masking part is like the most time consuming part, because you're drawing, you know, you're selecting an object across a bunch of frames, and it's very like tedious and time consuming work. So I want to see like, is it that way with this method, or like what are the other catches? And honestly, actually, you know what, I can get a different clip of me using this that won't get Cody nuked from orbit.
I'm just skipping stills of the video, that way there's no sound. Well, I in large part YouTube really freaks out about sound. They're less reactive to frames. Or
It did identify parts of it from the movie without this, but I guess maybe I did have the unmodified sound in there for a while. But anyway, I put in the YouTube chat another clip of me actually doing the mask. And I will say the magnetic mask feature is very impressive. I'm not up to date on the competition enough to know like how this compares to other solutions like this. Basically how it works in Final Cut is it's like a video effect, and you put it on the clip, and you have like a Photoshop eyedropper thing, and you select the object in the video, and then you can switch between a like green dropper and a red dropper, and the green is supposed to be you click the object you want to mask, and the red is like what you use to tell Final Cut like, no, don't cut that, like don't mask around this. So like in this this example clip, I'm clicking a bunch of places on Stitch to tell it, you know, where Stitch is, and then I'm removing the mask from like the chair behind him and the general background and stuff. So it's like training the AI to know like what Stitch is, where Stitch stops in this clip. And then you click analyze, and it masks every other frame in the clip. Just one button, and it is definitely finicky. It's not perfect. One thing I noticed it does is one thing I've seen a lot in TikTok videos, because TikTok has, you know, that thing where people can replace their video background with like an image or something. And I've seen a bunch of clips of people using that, and like part of their face is like fading in and out because the TikTok app, you know, can't tell where their face ends, or there's some light or something confusing it. And this does that too. I did have a lot of parts where certain where like the object I'm masking out like fades out a little bit, and I could sometimes convince it to not do that by like changing what I was selecting in that initial analyze. And they also have brush tools where like on each individual, you can go in later after you analyze it, and on each individual frame you can like draw in what it should have selected or remove parts. So I ended up doing that for some parts where it was very confused. But it got like 95% of it done. automatically, maybe more, because again, I didn't do this manually, so I don't know what the labor intensive version of this was. I only know I clicked analyze, and then like sometimes took an extra 10-15 minutes to like fully remove all the like little bits of the video it included when it didn't need to.
Yeah, so this process is typically referred to as rotoscoping. Um, and yeah, rotoscoping can be a really, really brutal process. Or it can actually sometimes go really smoothly. Uh, while it's hard to judge, and I've never actually actively watched any Lilo and Stitch stuff, the way the animation moves, I would imagine rotoscoping it would be kind of a nightmare. Um, just because it's it's fine animation, but it's not like super smooth. Um, there's definitely more jerkiness between frames, and so that kind of animation style is not great for rotoscoping. Um, it just because you basically every spot where something jerks from one position to another, you basically have to go to those frames and manually move all of your points. And typically when you draw for rotoscoping, it doesn't have to be this way, but it's almost always this way. You're doing it using a pin tool. And by pin tool, I mean paths. Like if you've used a pin tool in Photoshop, you know what I'm talking about. And this is basically vector drawing, or vector style paths. So yeah, if Carson, I paused on purpose. I was thinking if I let this play too much, if YouTube starts overanalyzing, it might freak out on this too. Yeah. But
Go watch it on my channel.
yeah. Well, I did let it play a few times, but I figured it could just sit on this. Anyway, so yeah, rotoscoping sucks. I've done it very briefly a little bit, and I've just generally avoided doing it for numerous reasons, and it's not worth it for me to do it. It does depend a little bit on what kind of thing you're doing. Like if you have, let's say just for example, a bridge. You're driving along the highway and you're trying to rotoscope a bridge so that you can have some text that it looks like the text is passing behind the bridge. That sort of thing is really easy because the bridge is moving at technically it's not a constant rate, but it is moving at a linear acceleration rate in your frame. That kind of thing is really easy to adjust for. You just have to move pick a few different spots and line it up, and it's okay if it's off by a tiny little bit. It still looks fine. When you have things that are very jerky and kind of moving at sort of random directions or speeds or at random times, yeah, you got to go not frame by frame, but you have to really just jump around and make tons of little minuscule changes over and over again, and yeah, that process is awful. So yeah, this is way better. That said, again, I've mentioned this before. DaVinci Resolve has this, as does Premiere Pro. Each one does it a little bit differently, a little better or a little worse, depending on how you like doing, or depending on how they chose to implement the tool. But yeah, it's a thing everyone now has, or all the big ones have. I don't think Vegas has it. I don't know what others would have it. Pretty sure stuff like LumaFusion doesn't have it because they're just a little on the simple side for this sort of thing. But yeah, it's a thing that's proliferating. And cheers to Final Cut for having it.
Yeah. Yeah, it was cool to try this out. And of course, this was the first like actual project I've ever tried to do in Final Cut, so I was also figuring out like how they handle keyframes, and how you can stack effects that way. Kind of how the timeline like isn't um like fixed. It kind of moves around as you move clips around, which was fine for this, but further reinforced my belief that I will never try to edit tech tales in this. It sounds like an absolute nightmare. um
When you say the timeline moves around, what do you mean by that?
well, like when I like, there's multiple layers, and
Oh, are you
clips
talking
that
about...
are on top of other clips. And so like if I delete like one in there, it's gonna delete the clips that are attached to that, or move them
Oh,
around or
that.
something. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
um
part of what you're talking about is the magnetic timeline, and
right.
part of what you're talking about is linked clips. I don't know
Yeah.
if that's what Final Cut calls it, but yeah. If you're
Right.
deleting one thing and something else is getting deleted with it, that's a link clip. That's super easy to deal with. You just need to learn the hotkey to unlink. Or I think you can also just, I want to say you can hold Command and click on the one you want to delete, and that way it'll select only that and not the other things linked.
Right.
Maybe it's Option or something else. I don't know, but yeah, that one's pretty easily solved. The magnetic timeline stuff, yeah, I think you can now turn that off in Final Cut. I don't remember. I haven't used it since I haven't used it in a few years now, but or at least not actively. But I think you can switch it to the more traditional timeline style. So it won't do the thing where if you delete one clip, everything to the right of it moves to the left. I'm pretty sure that's now an option.
Yeah. Yeah, and then like I wouldn't want to do tactiles in a video editor for other reasons too. Like it's just a lot more work for very little benefit for me. But like normal video stuff, this is very nice. I'll definitely just use this from now on instead of like trying desperately to get iMovie to do something that should be very simple, but it turns out I just can't do anymore. I do like how I was one thing I was doing earlier, I haven't finished, is I wanted to take this project and make it into like a couple YouTube shorts. And I did like that with Final Cut. You could just duplicate a project and it's tied to the same library, and then I can change the aspect ratio of the project and everything like mostly stays in place. Not really for this because of how I was using like the transform tool and keyframes. Like the reference for that got all mixed up, but like generally that works, which is nice. I did like how you can just stack effects and quickly modify all of them from like the little side panel. That's pretty nifty. Yeah, just generally worked well. I will say this is finally the thing that like where I hit a processing limit on my M1 Mac Mini, where there were certain parts where there's like like 2 or 3 mask clips with like effects on them, and I was getting the big pop-up that says help, I'm dropping frames, help. So I finally found the one thing I'm doing where I can't do it as well on my base M1
Yes.
Mac. So that's understandable. I feel like, but I just think it was kind of funny.
Yeah, it is really interesting that This is still kind of a thing where not everything, but so much of the computing world, you can throw it at an M1 chip and it handles just fine. Like every time I edit anything in Resolve, granted, I'm pretty lightweight when it comes to my edits. I don't throw a lot of effects on. There was one project where I used someone's weird thing for some text effects, and man, I regret that because it was really poorly implemented, and that thing caused some really bad chugging. But aside from that, every edit I've had, it processes so fast that it feels like nothing. I mean, I just made a few weeks ago, I just did a 20-minute video, or close to 20 minutes, for a review, and like the render time on that was, I want to say like 3 minutes and 20 seconds or something. And that was off of some pretty high res video. It had a color grade on some of it. There was some text effects and some animation. I think there was some animation. Might be wrong on that. But yeah. Again, still pretty lightweight stuff, but yeah, it had no trouble. And I had multiple video streams edited into the same frame. Yeah, absolutely no trouble handling any of it. So, not
I had
not to make this an ad, but yeah.
No, I had render times were definitely, or export times were definitely pretty short on this as well. I did notice, looking at like that activity window that pops out, that it was doing a lot of like pre-rendering stuff in the background. So I think when I finally hit export, it already had like most of what it needed to dump it into a file, and I was just exporting in the native like ProRes whatever, because I read that I can just upload that to YouTube and YouTube will handle it, and not degrade quality as much. So that's what I exported as. So it's 2-minute video that was like 3 gigabytes, but it's fine. That's what I can use my 40 megabytes per second upload for. So yeah, so first, major experience with Final Cut, pretty positive. I'll definitely use it more as I have reasons to. Probably going to make more edits like this because it was a fun distraction while the world was burning. Yeah, pretty good tool.
Yeah, don't get me wrong, I did like Final Cut. It was a lot better to work in than Premiere Pro. Not that I have a ton of history in Premiere Pro, but man, I hated every second of using it when I did. So yeah, I think Final Cut was hands down just so much better. It less powerful technically, but if what you're doing is editing video and not trying to do like massive animations and special effects, Final Cut blows Premiere Pro out of the water. Again, I will fully be a DaVinci shill and just say there were reasons I switched to that because it did more, and there were things about it that I just they work for my brain better. And I feel like anyone who's a software engineer or a developer of some kind, if you approach each of these things, if you encounter how DaVinci works, you will quickly go into it, or you'll quickly realize, wow, I just love the way Fusion is designed. The node-based system is just so so much nicer for that, which they also use in their color grades, which really makes so much more sense. It makes infinitely more sense than the way that Final Cut has it. But yeah, so
Yeah, and I'm one of the articles that I was already gonna write before this, as just like a quick, like, I need to write more at How to Geek that isn't news, because there's not always news to do, is kind of just how disappointed I've been by how Apple's handled iMovie and how it's degraded so much. Like that was one of the apps where I used it a ton when I was younger, like back in like the iMovie 6, iMovie HD days. I used it a little bit after they redesigned it. I think that was iMovie 7. And I remember that being like kind of a controversial update, but it still worked pretty well for me. And I remember when I switched back to Mac, like I guess it was 2 years ago now. And I was like, oh boy, I can try out iMovie again, and check out what's going on there. And it's awful. It's so boiled down. It can't do anything. You can't change the aspect ratio. It's like locked at 16:9.
yeah, that
Like,
in particular is a really bad decision.
Like the way it handles like cropping or like any kind of effects is really weird. The way it handles like audio tracks is weird. It's just really not good. And it's disappointing because like for years iMovie was like, that was like a big app for Apple. Like that, it was a big advertising thing for their computers. You get the iLife suite with iMovie and iDVD, and all those apps that all kind of worked well together. And now it's kind of deteriorated because like iMovie's garbage and iPhotos got turned into the Photos app that's like kind of weird and merged with iCloud stuff. So the article I'm gonna write eventually is just like, wow, they really dropped the ball on this one. And like I know why, and it's because like casual video editing or like prosumer video editing has just moved entirely to phones. Like that's where like normal people who might have used iMovie 15 years ago are now just filming the video on their phone and editing it in like the TikTok video editor. So there's less of a need to have that on a computer, but it still seems like something Apple should have, because they don't really have like advanced video editing on iPhone or anything like that. It's just annoying to me.
Not as a first party thing. Obviously, you can,
right.
And there are plenty of apps that offer it, but
So the fact that Final Cut is so good and iMovie is so garbage, it does make me feel like they're upselling. And in my case, it worked. But it does, they could do a little bit more there, definitely.
So I'm gonna kind of argue somewhat that this was both an inevitability and sort of well, I guess I'll just call it an inevitability. The reality of this kind of thing is, if you're editing a video, there are different reasons you might be editing a video. You could be making, let's say, a small store and you're just editing a commercial. That kind of thing, you might have wanted to use iMovie back in the day. These days, you probably should go actually like contact an agency or somebody who knows how to do this stuff and just leave it to them. But if you're going to do something yourself, chances are you can do it almost as easily in more advanced software and for free. Like DaVinci Resolve or something low cost like Vegas. Vegas has low cost options. Let me say it that way. If you're doing something for social media, Yeah, like you said, you're probably doing it on your phone. Even if you're not, again, iMovie wasn't really a good place to be doing it anymore because a lot of the pro apps just got easier to use. They realized that their interfaces were too complicated, so they started tweaking them, not to make them simple, but to make them simpler, to make them more approachable. So, they implemented more tooltips. They fixed things in ways so that they weren't making it harder for pros to work in them or making them annoying for pros, but they made it so that new people coming in could just download DaVinci Resolve, and yeah, they're going to stumble a little bit here and there, but chances are, as long as they can figure out, oh, I just I have to drag a video into it, drop it here. Oh, okay, I can do that. Oh, and then put it into the timeline. What's this timeline thing? Oh, that's what it is? Okay, I get that. Like the steps that you go through, and the same goes for Final Cut, though Final Cut's terminology for some of this stuff is so wacky. But going through that process is now pretty approachable in most editors. Again, don't touch Premiere. Premiere sucks. One of these days,
well, normal people aren't really gonna, like normal people wouldn't even go to that anyway because it's like, oh, they're gonna stop at this costs $40 a month part and not go
true,
further.
but don't forget free trials.
Yeah.
And for a lot
That's
of people, the free trial is 100% like the easy, just the easy thing that they can sign up for, do it once, or maybe do it for the couple of weeks that they're going to need it, and then they just never touch it again, which is how a lot of college students end up using it. They have a class where they have to do a few videos for the entire term. They sign up for a free trial and use it just as much as they need it and then never touch it again. Or they hope they never touch it again. And having used Premiere Pro, I hope I never touch it again. But like I said, Adobe is 100% sending a hit squad to me someday. But yeah, the point is, like, it got easier to start using pro apps, and seeing as there are pro apps that are either cheap or cheap or free, and obviously plenty of ways you can spend a lot of money on them, it started to just make sense to go for the pro app where you can ultimately do more if you need to do more, and if you don't need to do more, then it's not that much harder than what iMovie would have been or what any of the others are. And if you really want something that's just mega simple, then yeah, do it on your phone or a tablet.
Yeah, and like definitely on the intuitive thing, the only video editing experience I've had in the past couple of years, like long enough to retain more than basic knowledge, is like I made a couple YouTube shorts in Clipchamp, which is Microsoft's thing for Tech Tales, and I made one video in Kdenlive, which is KDE's sort of pro video editor, which was pretty cumbersome. And then this. So I wasn't coming into it with a lot of knowledge retained other than kind of what I wanted to do. And I didn't really have to Google anything. I looked up how to get to the magnetic mask feature, and I had to look up what some other things were called. Like I wanted to add an effect to some parts of the video of like a shaky cam sort of thing, and I couldn't figure out what it was called. So I had to Google, and it's like, oh, this effect is called handheld. Okay, that makes sense. So then I knew what it was. So there was a couple little things like that, and I had to Google how like the keyframes worked. But that was really it. Like everything else was pretty intuitive. Like 5% of that was the fact that the tools work a lot like Logic Pro, where you're just pressing like a single key on the keyboard to change what your mouse does. But that was also like in the UI, so I think if I'm gonna give myself some credit, I probably would have figured that out on my own eventually because the button was there. But yeah, like it, wasn't difficult, and doing stuff like stacking the effects, very similar to like layer effects in Photoshop or anything like that. So yeah, like wasn't that difficult. And I
Yeah.
don't think it was because I'm so smart. It was, it's just well designed.
And yeah, I would also pile on that frankly, once you learn and understand some of the core mechanics of uh, how obviously like layering video works, how masking works, which if you've used Photoshop, you probably already have some grasp on masking. Though even though it is the same thing, I there's something about masking in video that just feels like a very different thing. Um
Yeah, I barely ever mask things in Photoshop. Like
oh
real
man,
if
really?
I'm doing yeah, like if I'm doing something where like I need to cut out part of an object, I'll just like I know this is not what you should do, but like it's how my brain works is I'll just select it and then copy the selection and then delete it in that first layer and paste it as a new layer. So that's kind of how that's how I do things. And it's fine.
Oh boy. One of these days I kind of actually want to get you on to like proper masking technique. Because oh boy, one like it you don't feel the benefits of it until it clicks. And once it
Yeah, I mean,
clicks, you go, "Oh my god, okay, no, from here on out everything is a mask," which is maybe not good because it ends up technically taking more memory, but oh my god, it's having everything masked is so useful.
yeah, I mean, I have to interact with that sometimes because the generative fill in Photoshop, and I think sometimes the content aware fill creates masks. Um, so I do have to fuck with them occasionally, but um, yeah, and David said rename Clipchamp to Windows Movie Maker. Yeah, Clipchamp also is such a missed opportunity because I feel like Microsoft didn't make it; they bought it, and it's a web app, so it's already like not that good. When I used it,
Oh crap. Seems like we got a frozen Corbin stream. Um, okay, hold on one second. I'm gonna try refreshing the stream. Are you there? Okay, I think it's him that froze. Okay. So that's a thing that happened. Um let's try messaging him really quick and see if we can get a response. Uh And who knows? He could have lost internet connection too. I mean, just about anything's possible there. Microsoft silence Corbin. It that you never know. Microsoft can be a petty company. They're taking a strike out on the RambleCast. Not happy with Corbin talking about Clipchamp. Not happy with it. We're going to be talking about some AI that at least very distantly relates to Microsoft in a little bit. Totally unrelated, but one of my files or a file move just finished. Yay. Let's see. No okay. Corbin is offline in Discord too. I think he lost internet. Like, he hopped on mobile. Okay, I think he's coming back. So possible power outage or internet lost. He hasn't said, but the fact that he had to hop onto mobile, not a great sign. Yes, I know. The two Codys talking to each other. Which gives you that fun little mirrored effect too, because I mean that always keeps it entertaining. Hey, Greenland is attacking. Oh geez. So all the same, let's see. Got a high five the other. The problem with that is, you know, I mean, I can shake my other hand like in the hidden space, but I'd have to move these close together to pull off the high five. Suppose I could, just for dumb laughs, I could absolutely do that. Which one do I want to move? No, not that one. Oh, doesn't quite work. Yeah, need to kind of tie. The delay on that kind of makes that not great. How about just the fist bump? What is it? Not Wonder Twin Towers, but what's the one where they did the like overarm fist bump or overhead fist bump like that? We've got that one. Okay, try to move things back to where they actually belong again. All right. Let's see. How's it coming? And he still hasn't said anything. I wonder if the other possibility that maybe his computer just crashed. The M1 failed him again twice in 1 week. Oh, so yeah, anyway. Yeah, I'm going to start messing with more stuff in DaVinci pretty soon for a number of reasons, not least of which is I'm definitely going to start putting more focus on getting a YouTube channel fired up and going, because for reasons that I will detail later. Yeah, I don't necessarily see having as much activity or involvement with the Android police in the near future. Welcome back, or you're getting back. Still no image. Oh, we now have audio, kind of.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not gonna try video because I'm hotspotting now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Spectrum just went down super hard, I guess.
Yeah, so. I was trying to guess, was it I knew it wasn't power outage, or I figured the power outage was unlikely because you have a UPS covering everything important. So
well not my computer at my desk. But I still could have joined from laptop or something.
Yeah. And so I figured it was either internet connection or your computer crashed. And
nope, just just internet, so that's fun. Anyway. So yeah. I was talking about how garbage Clipchamp is. That's right.
Yes.
Um, so yeah, I used it once, but it's kind of weird because it needs a subscription to unlock most features, and it's a subscription that is separate from the Microsoft 365 subscription, even though it's sort of advertised as part of Microsoft 365. It's a different thing to unlock everything. So it's just not it's not good. Um, Especially compared to like I think it might be better than iMovie just because like it's getting actual feature development. Um,
Yeah,
but
you're setting the
it's
lowest bar there.
yeah, it's getting some feature development. Um, but it's like a paid subscription and it's a web app, and it yeah, it's not good. Um, I'll try enabling my video. I'll see how this goes. Probably not gonna work.
Looks fine. It's maybe
Okay.
a little fuzzy, but other than that,
Yeah.
like yeah, seems fine.
Okay. I'm
Though
using that.
I don't know what your data plan situation is. You don't have to do video if that's an issue.
No, I've got 15 gigs. It's fine.
Okay.
So,
Um,
Carson said it's a cable internet fiber. It's cable. It's a Spectrum cable internet.
yeah, Corbin
Although
doesn't
I
live in one of the good states where they have things like competition.
no, well, I mean there is competition, but I live in an apartment where they can tell Google Fiber or whoever to fuck off.
That too.
Um, so I'm sure that's probably what happened, especially because Comcast is now bundled in my rent and I can't opt out. So,
Which is
or not
wild.
Comcast, I'm sorry, Spectrum.
Yeah, like there's really
Yeah,
that big a difference.
yeah, it's really cool because before they did that, I could at least choose like how how what speeds I wanted and potentially get lower speeds and save some money, but I can't do that now. I have gigabit whether I like it or not, and only gigabit download, and not all the time because it varies. My upload is 40 megabits per second, so that's cool. That's fun.
Yikes. Um, so we could probably, well, I could certainly talk about video editors all day, but I have a feeling we probably shouldn't stick on that. Um, so shall we talk some Sony and some Blu-ray discs?
Yeah. The Sony one is kind of a quick one. There was a message posted on Sony Japan's website that said they were ending production of Blu-ray disc media as well as mini discs for recording and MD data disc for recording. And a lot of websites posted articles that were like, "This is it, Blu-ray's over, they're done making discs." Um, it was kind of weird because the source was like machine translated Sony Japan, so I feel like there's might be something wrong. And also like the couple articles about this, like no one seemed to ask Sony for like at all. It just reported based on the statement. So
You do know that's
I did,
how all news is now covered. Nobody
yeah,
contacts a company except maybe The Verge on like 5% of posts.
yeah, yeah. I'll get to that, but so I did the incredible journalistic duty of sending Sony an email, and I asked them like, "Hey, can you clarify this?" And so they sent a reply, and it was on my off day, so I made Andrew here write it. And they basically just said that this was about recordable Blu-ray discs. The email they sent me verbatim, which was in English, they got someone to write this in English.
That was very nice and
It said,
professional of them.
Yes, that's very good because I can't speak Japanese.
Yet.
Um, yeah. So they said in Japan we have a culture to record TV programs on Blu-ray discs, and we sell blank storage Blu-ray discs for this use only in Japan. The sub the products subject to this notification are those discs. No other products, such as recorded Blu-ray containing movies sold by Sony or Blu-ray players sold by Sony, are the scope of this notification. So basically, they're saying that this is about specifically like the like user burnable Blu-ray disc, and they didn't clarify, but I believe they're only talking about in the Japan market. But I'm not 100% sure about that. I probably should have like sent them an email back, but again, it was my off day, so I'm sorry. Someone else can send them one email to ask.
Or just wait
But
like 6 months and go into a store and
right,
or go on some site and look to see if you can still get burnable Blu-rays.
yeah. Yeah, well, like I don't doubt that like this could be a floppy disk situation where the production ends and then the supply doesn't run out for like 10 more years.
Yeah.
But also like when I saw those articles, it's just like, does anyone think this is weird? Like Sony just released a new console that has a disk drive, and they still sell a lot of PS5 games that are Blu-ray discs. And no movie studios have really stopped making like disc movies and TV show collections. Like, obviously the demand for that is much lower than it was 5 and 10 years ago, but none of them have like fully stopped.
Yeah, I would
Um,
actually pile on specifically with the point that a lot of stores have explicitly removed all of their like Blu-ray sections, or at least DVD
yeah,
sections. So there is some amount of like, it's kind of expected that things like this might start dying off.
right. Yeah,
This is
like
still
I
premature for sure, but it's starting to approach that point where it maybe feels not crazy.
yeah, like it wouldn't surprise me if this actually does happen in a couple of years, like maybe after the PS5 generation is done, if things continue the way they are. Again, like some physical media is having a resurgence because subscriptions are getting insane. So I don't know, but
Also because weird
it's
people think vinyl's back.
right. Well, to your point about stores, in my local Target, the Blu-ray disc section got eliminated a couple months ago, and now the vinyl section has expanded into it, which is very weird.
I
Um,
I don't know if you saw it, but about a year-ish ago, I don't know, I'm ballparking. I shared a picture to Discord specifically showing at my local Walmart where there was just a full long aisle, a double-decker aisle of just vinyl albums. And very prominently, I'll never get over this, Britney Spears' first album was like probably the most visible of them. And yeah, that was, it was a very weird experience seeing this. Walmart, my local Walmart has since really reined this in. They still definitely have plenty of vinyl, but the section has shrunk substantially. And I think that very same record is actually still there. But yeah, I don't remember if they. Oh no, they definitely still have Blu-ray movies though, and
mhm.
I honestly I don't see much chance that those are going away for a good long while.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'll probably get to be like. Sorry, I'm checking if my internet is back, and it doesn't seem like it is. Um, I'm sure it'll end up like CDs and cassette tapes and stuff, where it becomes very niche, and we're down to like one factory somewhere that is making them. Um, but we don't seem to be there yet, and I think before that has to happen, I think probably some movie studios would have to be like, no, we're done for sure with like physical media at all, and Sony would need to move on from disc games. And also, I think I think Xbox games are Blu-ray.
Yes, they are.
So like
And
there's just like a lot of
if I
uses for
remember, the
this
only
that
one
are still
who's
ongoing.
not on Blu-ray is Nintendo.
Yeah, because I mean, like anyone who needs like a disc that can store more than like 4 GB or whatever the cap for DVD is.
Yeah.
Which honestly is an Xbox at this point because they just they download the whole game when you buy it anyway. But
Well, same with Sony.
so, yeah, so Blu-ray death not happening quite yet, as far as I can tell. It wouldn't surprise me if like recordable Blu-ray discs worldwide go away, because I don't know if that's really a product that has like a purpose anymore. I know there's like a couple of situations where like you'd want like backups on sort of a disc format, but I know there's a different archival format that a lot of places use now. I forget what it's called. But there's that, and then also just people use like hard drives and flash storage now because it's very cheap.
Yeah.
So
yeah, the notion of doing sort of burnable media, it's not going to go away. And I wouldn't be surprised if we get something new somewhere in the next few years that's incredible. I'm assuming somebody out there is working on something that is incredibly high density, could be incredibly cheap, and is, and the possibility that it is a burn once, or more like a rewritable where you have to kind of wipe it and reburn it or something. I wouldn't be surprised if something like that came out and gained its own form of popularity, because not that this is the best example, but I right now have a NAS that I am moving. Oh, what does it work out to be? About 12.5 terabytes, I think. I had sitting on this NAS, and I'm moving it off right now. And let's be honest, if someone came out with some good media or storage media, I would be very happy to be able to load not all of that data, but a good chunk of that data onto something like that, because that way I could just keep it there. But yeah, I don't think there's anything else that's really come along to replace Blu-ray in any meaningful way yet, other than just using drives.
yeah, and like I can still also, like, you can still buy recordable DVDs, like I and CDs. I bought recordable CDs a couple months ago because I needed to make new boot discs for my Power Mac, which can't boot from USB.
Yes.
So that's why I burned a CD in the year of our Lord 2024. So
Well, hey, if you go far enough back in time, DVDs actually weren't bootable. You'd have to go to CDs, but
well, yeah, no, this can't boot. This can't read DVDs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it has to be CD. Because I figured that out when I started fixing it initially. Is I have a retail DVD of Mac OS X Tiger, and it won't boot that. So I had to go find a download for the CD version of Tiger, which was like 5 CDs, and burn those. So, but now it's fine. I have a bunch of blank CDs. I made some. They're fine.
Brutal.
It's so weird. Still nothing is loading on my Wi-Fi, but my router is not giving me like a blinking light that something's up. I wonder if Next DNS is down, maybe. I'm gonna try VPNing it. Anyway, So yeah, this is Blu-ray's not dead yet. Don't freak out. I mean, maybe freak out a little bit, but like not to the extent that it's dead. And
May I
the fact,
propose, if you're gonna freak out, there are like 1,000 other things to freak out about right now. This is probably
right,
not
like
not the one to choose.
right, like yeah. And I will say this is another. We've talked about this a couple times. This is another example of like tech media just getting noticeably worse in the past couple of years, to the point where this was like a bunch of sites is now have now covered this. Like I saw it on Hackaday. I saw it initially it was Tom's Hardware who posted this, which has done this a couple other times, where the the tech media has consolidated and uh shrunk so much to where the the quality has really taken a nosedive outside of a couple big outlets that are still doing fine, like Verge and TechCrunch and those places. Um, and it's been kind of alarming to me, because again, like I was able to do hashtag journalism on this by just sending Sony an email, and like everyone else who was covering this like didn't think about that, or didn't want to, or couldn't. Um, like it's weird. Like what? Like I saw this on, I think, Tom's Hardware, and I was like, Sony just released a new PlayStation with discs. It's like, why would they kill off all Blu-ray now, and like everything else? Like it's so like no one thought to ask, like just the fact, like reporting, like English media reporting on a Google Translate of a Japanese website on its own is kind of sus. Um, because that gets things wrong all the time, from what I understand. So I don't know. This was just very weird. I don't know why this was as widely covered as it did. I don't think The Verge covered this at all. Um, let me
Probably
see.
because they just thought it was too suspicious, or maybe they had somebody who reads Japanese, and they just saw it and were like, yeah, no, this is a nothing burger.
Okay,
Um,
The Verge did cover it based on Tom's Hardware reporting, but they were talking about in the Verge article, the first sentence is Sony's officially ending production of recordable Blu-rays. So they correctly interpreted it as not all Blu-ray discs. Um, so they didn't get this wrong. Oh, Tom's Hardware updated. Ooh, let's see. Where's the update? This says updated. I don't see an update in the article. Where did they put it? Wow, did they fuck this up? I think they updated it to make it not wrong, and they didn't put any message of what changed, except the title says updated. Because now this says recordable Blu-ray disc. Wow, guys, come on.
okay,
Come on,
so
man.
you were just saying how this is a problem with a lot of sort of modern outlets. Um, I look, I'll go back to, and I'm not going to name the site. I honestly, I think people can know, or probably some may even remember who it was. But look, I remember a time when Google sent out an embargo for some news that they had coming up. I wrote about it. Plenty of other sites wrote about it. One in particular covered the news completely wrong. Not just wrong, but like comically badly. So much so that it literally is concerning that they misunderstood it so deeply. I then, so I, at recognizing how bad their coverage was, I actually tweaked my article just to add a note clarifying and kind of explaining what was wrong. I didn't call them out by name. I made a point of not being like openly hostile to them or about them or anything. But yeah, so they later updated the article and got it wrong again. They actually completely misunderstood the clear explanation that was given about how their article was wrong. And yeah, so sometimes that's just how it goes. There are a lot of there are a lot of writers out there that just don't understand the technicals, and they don't know this stuff, so it happens.
Yeah, I mean, I know there's people in this industry that like to eat the whole glue stick. But usually there's someone at these big sites stopping them before it gets to the website. I don't know. This was very weird, and it's concerning that it got this far. And now Tom's Hardware, I guess, has pretended they didn't mess it up. Which I'm sure I've done that before. Like, I fixed an article and not like explained in detail what changed. But this article was everywhere. I saw it showing up everywhere. So they need to do better than this. That's bad. That's really bad. So this is also like not helping. I think doing this long enough, you eventually get the terminal journalist brain, where you're like, every statement online needs a verifiable source. This needs like a voting by mail chain of custody to how you got this piece of information. Yeah, it's I mean, they did link to the source, so I'll give Tom's Hardware that, but they seem to have messed up everything else here.
Yeah, well, proper sourcing is also one of those things that some sites famously either just wouldn't do or even actively refuse to do.
Yeah, I just smashed that oldest archive button on my Wayback Machine browser extension to see the original version of this article, and it is completely different. The original title was, "After 18 years, Sony's Blu-ray media production draws to a close, shuts its last factory in February." New title is, "After 18 years, Sony's recordable Blu-ray media production draws to a close." Again, no mention here of like the entire point of the article changing. Wow, that's really bad. That's concerning.
Well, it's a nice indicator for you of don't trust Tom's Hardware. Not that I think you were.
Yeah, I no, I think because I think they've done stuff like this a couple times, but that's really bad.
Yeah. Well, like I said, there are some sites I just implicitly don't trust anymore because, too many.
I will say another site that sharply dropped in quality. Is Cord Cutters News, where they were pretty good for a while, and then the original owner sold it to some other company, I forget who, and it kind of, my impression is it declined a little bit, and then the original owner got it back, and it seemed fine for a while. Like, I had it in my RSS feeds, and then one day the articles started getting really weird, and I looked at the site, and every article was very obviously written by ChatGPT, because it has a very specific way of writing that you can clock immediately if you read like 10 samples. It likes to do it likes to write in exact, especially if you don't like try to customize it at all. It likes to write in like a book report style, where there's like a clearly defined introductory and ending paragraphs.
Yeah, there's a very specific cadence to it too.
Yeah, and it likes to do sentences that are like, from this to this thing's happening. Like, it loves doing that sentence structure. So like, you can clock in immediately, and I noticed that all the articles are like that now, and the comment section got removed at some point. And I even went like on their like Facebook page to wonder like, is anyone calling them out for like the articles as being really weird? And no, they're not. So hope that guy's getting his bag, but I had to take that out of my feeds. Um, yeah, I just clicked another one. First article I clicked on their website, which ironically is about Dish and Sling TV using AI to improve content discovery. It's an article it has the classic ChatGPT like headers that it likes doing and bullet points, which I also like Axios. Axios likes doing that, but in a slightly different way. And
Yeah, and
the final
Axios is
paragraph,
legitimate though. I mean,
right?
maybe not.
Yeah,
Maybe
Axios
some
actually,
people don't like them, but
right. Yeah, they pay actual humans to write the articles. Last paragraph in this article is, this move also highlights the growing importance of AI and machine learning in the media and entertainment industries. As viewers face an overwhelming amount of content choices, companies like Dish are turning to sophisticated technologies to help curate, personalize, and ultimately enhance the viewing experience, which is exactly how ChatGPT writes. So, yeah, I don't mean to do this to like haha point and laugh at like the media
we do a
industry
little.
eating itself alive. I mean a little bit, but also not really. I'm just like really sad. I'm the disappointed dad looking at all these other outlets going like, how could you let this happen? I understand why this happened, but I'm still upset. And I don't like getting to the point where there's like The Verge and TechCrunch and like three other websites, and then every single other website, I'm like, I need to analyze every statement you've made in here to verify if your writer was eating the glue stick or not.
Honestly,
That's concerning.
I'm just blown away that in this moment, TechCrunch has somehow become one of the sites that even gets into it, like in the discussion of this is one of the air quote good ones. We're talking
Well,
about a
yeah, I
company
mean,
that was literally created to manipulate stock prices for companies that they were investing in through
yeah, and
through their investment firm.
yeah,
They were
yeah,
literally there to manipulate stocks.
right.
And
Well, I mean, yeah, they're good in the same way that Hindenburg Research is, right? We're like they're doing great work. It's just maybe for a maybe not the best,
yeah, it's for all the
purpose,
wrong
but
reasons.
right. And I say TechCrunch because I do see a lot of original reporting for them, but a lot of the reporting is also on like whatever like Silicon Valley bro startups are doing right this instant. And every time I read it, I get like immediately depressed. Like I think if I could not do that job with a straight face,
Yeah.
or at least like some of the reporting on there where they're talking about like startups and stuff, where it's like I'm sorry, I I can't do it. I'm not gonna. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
almost it's almost as if Valleywag never went away. Um I know nobody knows that anymore.
yeah, they do a lot of good work, but also a lot of the articles I read there where they're talking about like some AI startup, I'm reading like this is awful. Like, and then you get to the point of the article where it's like, oh, they got funded $13 billion. Like, okay, that's good. Anyway, so yeah, this is just Corbin. Corbin is sad about the media industry collapsing, and to a certain extent, this is also happening in like other news, like rapidly getting to the point where a lot of quality news is either it's just like behind a paywall because everyone's forgotten or can't figure out how to make money anymore, or the money needs to go to overhead and big publishers, and misinformation is not paywalled, so it's creating a lot of problems. So I'm just sad. And I'm kind of shocked this made waves like it did, while being like at least immediately to me like not feasible, like not realistic.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't. This is very very weird to me. I've not seen anything this bad in quite a while. Um. So yeah, moving on to something that's less depressing, I guess, is Pebble watches might be coming back. Um.
The notion that this is less depressing is depressing.
Yeah, because it's it's something that might something fun. So Eric Midshovsky, I'm not sure how that last name is pronounced. I'm sorry, Eric.
My
Eric was one of
Jahovsky.
the Okay. Eric was the one of the founders of Pebble, which made the ink smartwatches, like kind of the first like modern smartwatch. Because it predated Wear OS and Apple Watch and
Wait,
all those other.
were they ink? Or were they
Yeah,
just okay?
yeah,
For some
yeah.
reason I
It
thought they
was
were
the
just
ink screens.
colorless LCD. But okay.
No, it was black and white ink, and then I think they made one model that had color inks, but it was early color ink, so it was super washed out and gross. So yeah, they made a couple devices. They promised a couple more things. I remember they were working on like an iPod Shuffle kind of thing with Spotify integration, and then they got bought by Google, and Google killed everything Pebble, but it bought them to bolster. Well, actually, oh, I'm sorry. It was Fitbit that bought them. I
Yeah, I was
forgot.
gonna say
It was
Google did
Fitbit that
not.
bought them, and then Google bought Fitbit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Pebble's been long dead, but um, Pebble was able to sort of open up all the infrastructure for Pebble before it died, so all the watches could be like unlocked, bootloader unlocks, run custom firmware. So some people still use them. The Verge wrote this article. They were talking about Eric, who still uses his all the time, and he's talked about how he wants to make new Pebble watches because there's not really anything like it on the market. And I would agree with that. The only thing I can think of that's kind of similar to what Pebble was Fossil was making hybrid watches for a while that they looked a lot like normal analog wristwatches, but they had an e-ink screen on them, like embedded in the watch face for like health tracking and like little notification alerts and stuff. But Fossil gave up on that a long time ago. So he's talked about how he wants to try to make new Pebble watches, and there's not like a Kickstarter or crowdfunding or anything yet. I believe there's like an email list, but the main thing that's happened so far is Eric is now once again loaded because he sold his last company, which was Beeper, to Automatic, which is very funny. So Automatic's definitely just gonna let that slowly wither away like everything else they buy. And so he's got a lot of money from that now, and he asked Google if Google could pretty please release all the source code for Pebble stuff because they still had the IP rights to that from buying Fitbit, and Google was like, sure. So all Fitbit or all Pebble stuff is now open sourced on GitHub, so they can effectively continue from where they left off. I would be interested in how much of that would still be usable. Like I would imagine a lot of like the mobile app components would have to be rewritten for modern devices, but if new Pebble watches were architecturally similar to the old ones, like probably all that can stay, I would imagine. I guess just depends on how far from the last Pebble watches the new ones would be.
Right. Um. Huh. Yeah. So, in practical terms, they certainly could just kind of pick up where they left off. There's no reason not to, and ink has progressed in a few ways. So, the hardware technology is there. They could also take advantage of mobile processors that have substantially improved. um, or well, at this size category. Um, that said, I'm curious how much people want this. It's something that I feel like it hit sort of its maximum viable customer base back when it was still a thing, and I kind of suspect that by now that customer base has dropped away quite a bit, as particularly the Apple Watch got very attractive to a lot of people, and even Android Wear has become or Wear OS, whatever we're gonna call it, has become good enough or ideal in the right ways that I think it just has a lot fewer opponents than it used to. Now, maybe some of those people might still prefer Pebble, but that's, kind of neither here nor there, because they can prefer it all they like, but if they have some reason why they want to or have to go over to the other thing, then it's kind of just better for them to do that.
Yeah, I will say there are a couple of things I can see working to Pebble's advantage here. I just unplugged my modem to see if maybe that brings my internet back. A couple of things to Pebble's advantage here. Number one is there's still the hot trend of removing smart devices from your life, and the Pebble is a smartwatch, but it's not like as much of a smartwatch as Wear OS and Apple Watch. Like it's a far more toned down software experience, less distracting. It's a thing you don't have to charge every night because it's an e-ink watch. Also, I think there is still a market for like the people who like to like hack it and make software for it, because I've seen Pine 64, who made like the Pine phone and a bunch of other like Linux devices. They made a smartwatch, and there is like a developer community around that. So it wouldn't surprise me at all if Pebble comes back, if there's like a brand, like a community ready to go for that would be interested in building stuff for this and messing with it. And also, from more of a like normal person perspective, if a new Pebble watch comes out and it's affordable, which presumably it would be if they keep a similar design as the older ones, which are a decade old now. If it's affordable and kind of well designed and accessible, and it works with iPhone and Android, that could be pretty useful, because now all the major smartwatch options are locked to one platform. Like I think maybe the Fitbit smartwatches that are running Fitbit software work with iPhone and Android, but none of the modern Wear OS watches work with iPhone. Apple Watches never work with Android. So there's potential there for something that's less locked into one ecosystem. So I think it's cool. I wanted a Pebble watch when they were new, but it was when I was much younger and didn't have like a job yet. So I never got one. So I would get a new Pebble watch if it comes out. It's not like, I'm not expecting a new Pebble watch to be like an obscene amount of money. So I'd probably get one.
So,
if nothing else, to get some content out of it.
It's a little bit funny that you say some of that, because since this topic started, I've been thinking, man, there's never been a more perfect time for me to sell off my original Kickstarter edition Pebble that is still in the box, never opened. Because I signed up to back it, and I've told this story a few times, so it's, sorry for anyone who remembers it, but I signed up to back the original Pebble. I thought, hey, this is a neat idea. I kind of dig it. I want to try it. And part of what I was also interested in doing was building apps for it. And so I followed their social media account, which was the only place where they were planning at the time on like feeding out details about the development platform. And they were spamming it with every person that said anything about Pebble. They were retweeting everything. They were resharing stuff. Like quote tweeting everything. It just was this endless source of noise. And I ended up tweeting at them basically saying, hey, could you start like a separate account for developer stuff, or is there some other way that we can follow this? Because all of these tweets are basically just massive signal to noise that it's destroying my timeline. And whoever their social media manager was, or who knows, maybe it was Eric, for all I remember. Anyway, whoever it was super dickish about it, basically told me to pound sand and was rude as hell. And it's like, okay, your project's, you know what? If this is how you act, your project's not going to make it. So, yeah, I just completely lost interest, and Corbin's gone again. Welcome back.
Sorry, my rebooted modem seems to have been fine, so I was switching back to normal internet.
That makes sense. So yeah, anyway, after that, I lost all desire to have anything to do with their platform. And once that happened, yeah, the watch just ended up sitting in the box ever after. And then it wasn't that long later before Android Wear came around, and it's like, you know what? Yeah, I'd rather use this anyway.
Yeah. By the time I had money, that was when the very first Android Wear watches were starting to show up. So I bought pretty early on the Galaxy Gear Live, the Samsung one.
I'm so sorry.
And that was not the go. No, yeah, I did have that. The fucking charging cradle broke, so I had to buy a new one of those at some point, just like everyone else had to.
Yep.
It's still in the drawer behind me somewhere here.
I went to Google I/O that year, and Artem got to claim both watches. I had to pick between either getting a LG watch or the Galaxy Gear. I went with the LG watch. I don't remember the reason I went with that. I think it was purely aesthetics. Like, I remember I just thought it looked better between the two. Not to say either of them looked good, but... And I'm not sure that was even the reason. It might have been a software purity issue. Or, I don't know. Could have been one of a few other reasons, but yeah. For whatever reason, I went with that one, and yeah, I made the right choice.
I thought it was in this drawer. It might be in a different one. But yeah, I have the Gear Live, and the cradle broke and the band broke because it's a proprietary band too. And then the Samsung one is what I made some videos with, and then Google PR sent me a Moto 360, and then that was great for a while until the battery expanded, and then it became a dangerous thing.
Very, yes.
Yeah, and then at some point I did get the LG watch, which I still think looks fine. Like it had the same aesthetic as like when Apple made that iPod Nano that you could technically wear on your arm. Mm-hmm. It was like that. It was fine. It was fine. But yeah. So new Pebble watch maybe at some point. I'll probably get one if it comes out and the price isn't crazy. We'll see.
Truth is, I still have no interest in that, but yeah, hopefully somebody out there is like, ooh, wow, I could get an original Kickstarter edition. I must have, and they'll pay me too much for it.
I mean, are they going on eBay?
Last I checked, which it was probably a year ago, I think they were going for like $45 or something.
If I search Pebble smartwatch on eBay, and of course I have to filter by sold items. Um, Kickstarter edition without the box is $50. One in the inbox ones look like they're going a little bit higher than that. Man, the Pebble times are cheap, man. I kind of want a Pebble time, or because they made the Pebble time is the one they made that like didn't look like it looked more like a normal watch, and then they made the round one. But I did really like the the Pebble time. That's the one I wanted, and then by the time I had money, they were decimated. So, so yeah. Anyway, so yeah, new Pebbles. We'll see how that goes. I'd probably buy one if they can get one to market and it like functions okay and works with Apple stuff. I think they said they wanted to get it working with iOS. Because like I know they could to an extent, even without like an app, because Microsoft has done this integration to like the maximum limit with Windows, the Windows Phone Sync app that's changed name 3 times. I don't know what it's called anymore, but the thing where you can pair a smartphone to your Windows PC to get like the notifications. And with iPhone, you can get your notifications, and they built a UI for like chat messages, even like iMessage. It just goes through the Bluetooth protocol, and they're doing something with it. So you could make a pretty functional Pebble watch that still works with modern iPhones. It just probably wouldn't have like, I don't know. It obviously it wouldn't. I think the missing features compared to an Apple Watch would be more understandable when the watch itself isn't capable of many of those things.
Hey, yeah.
So, like all the Pebble watches, all the Pebble Watch apps were always like kind of standalone things anyway. So I think it's probably fine.
Yeah. Well, we'll see.
We'll see. Yeah.
Cool. So, just as a thought, a quick note, that one last topic, let's just save that for next week. But let's talk about your iPad mini situation, and we'll call that a wrap.
All right. Yeah, my iPad mini situation is pretty quick. So I've been frustrated once again with tablets. I have my iPad Air that's kind of busted up because I got it for very, very cheap on swap. But this was the first like Apple device I bought in like modern, like myself, in 10 years. Because I needed a Safari test device really bad. So it was either this or like get a Mac or like an old iPhone or something. And this was the cheapest iPad I could find with USB-C. So that's what I got. And I've kept it and then bought a bunch of other Apple crap. So I was thinking like I kind of want a bigger e-reader because I have my Nook that is a 6-inch screen. I was like, okay, I could get the bigger Nook, or I could try to get an iPad mini, which would be better than my phone for reading books and also useful for other things. And it would be a new iPad with a fresh battery and, longer software support than this iPad's going to get. So I was like, okay, this sounds good. And then like literally as I was thinking of doing this, the very next day, Apple does a sale on the 6th gen iPad mini, which is the one they just replaced last year. So they're, clearing out old stock. So it was $300, $200 off MSRP. Original MSRP is crazy, but $300 for a pretty new iPad with 64 gigs of storage, and like Apple Pencil 2 support and everything else. So I was like, okay, I'll try it. So I got it, and I realized that I had been fooled once again. Because this is a problem I've had all my life, is I think, wow, this small electronic is so cool. I'm gonna get it, and I'm gonna use it for the purposes that a normal people would use with the larger versions. And every time it doesn't work, right? Like I bought like a smaller like netbook like laptop at one point, and it was garbage because it was like a netbook. I got one of the little GPD Windows laptops at one point. I had to return that because it didn't really work all that well. Like every time I'm like, this small electronic looks cool. I'm gonna buy it. Never goes well. The most it went well for me was when I got the Galaxy S10e, which was Samsung's like kind of smaller flagship phone. And I did use that as my main phone for a long time. And I still think that was a very good phone, but the battery life was not good because it was so small. So again, that's physics, that's understandable. So the iPad mini, I started setting it up, and it, I mean, it's an iPad but smaller, so I knew how it worked. Um, the issue, the main thing it had to do for me to keep it was it needed to be pretty good at reading books, because I wanted it to like mostly replace e-readers. I can sell e-readers potentially to cover some of that. Because also, like, I know it's not going to be as good for reading as an e-ink screen, but like I would get the advantage of its color, and I can use it for comics or whatever. And it's not good. Like my eyes were actually hurting after a while trying to read a book on it, because it's an iPad and they still use LCD screens, and like they're really good LCDs, but it's still an LCD, and it's just not not that good for that, unfortunately. And so it kind of failed at that. And of course, then the other issues with the iPad mini form factor is like, well, it's not as good for like movies and stuff because it's a smaller screen. Some games are better on it for sure because it's like still it's holdable in a way that like a 10-inch iPad isn't really not.
Yeah.
But it's not even ideal for that because it has both in that and with reading. I was having the issue where it's like it's kind of heavy because it's Apple's still building it out of like aluminum and glass, so it's a lot heavier than my Nook e-reader is, because that thing is just the cheapest plastic imaginable and it's great. It's super lightweight. So it's like this isn't really like that comfortable to hold with one hand, and it doesn't read books all that well. And in all other ways, it's like slightly worse than the iPad I have, except that it has a fresh battery. So I returned it. That's why I'm not holding it up, because I don't have it anymore. So kind of disappointed. I thought that could be cool, but I realized it's probably not what I need, especially for books where I definitely have like attention issues. So I probably need to not put the books on the same thing that has like YouTube. Just like that's YouTube and Discord, those don't need to be on the same thing. And also one thing I forgot before buying it, which I should have thought about, was iPads still suck at standby battery. They're still really bad at this in a way that actually Android is better. So if I got like like a new 8-inch Samsung Galaxy Tab, it would probably be better at this. Also because those are OLED screens. But then it's still tablet that I can get easily distracted by. So yeah, I returned the iPad Mini. I think what I'll probably end up doing is I might buy the. Okay, so I had this Nook, which is I think it's the Glow Light 3 Plus. It's a 7-inch Nook, so it's like bigger than a normal Kindle or Nook. And I like this a lot. I reviewed it on the Android Police. It was I think one of my last reviews on AP. Um, and it's nice, except micro USB. So it's in the other room, so I won't get it. So I eventually Barnes and Noble made a Nook with USB-C. So I bought that, but it was smaller. It's like Kindle size. So at some point they made a new one of these that is USB-C. So I think what I might do, not anytime soon, but what I might do is get the new one of these that is USB-C and then sell this and the smaller Nook, and then I'll be good. But I'm not really going to do that anytime soon because the Nook is fine. I would just like it to be a little bit bigger so I don't have to change page every like 30 seconds. So, yep, that's where I am. iPad mini was unfortunately disappointing. And I'm also annoyed that Apple still has not made a normal iPad with an OLED screen. They just made iPad Pros with OLED screens, and those are very expensive. And I don't want to pay that much for an iPad when an iPad is still an iPad.
Yeah.
And it still doesn't have like a normal browser on it. Or a lot of other things. Like it's kind of silly. I saw the iPad Pro 11-inch was on sale for like $800, and I'm like, the M2 MacBook Air is less than that, and that is a whole ass computer. I can run VS Code and Parallels on that, and Apple won't let me do either of those things on an iPad.
Yes, which is in fact a half-assed computer. Yeah, no, I think everything you said makes sense. The thing is, obviously you're looking for kind of a specific thing that more or less fits a niche as opposed to kind of the general purpose thing, which sort of works against that niche in this instance.
Right. This was my hubris. Is I was like, okay, I'm gonna replace big iPad that's kind of old and my e-readers with one thing, but it's like, oh, the one thing is worse.
Yeah.
It's even further into the master of none that tablets exist in for a lot of things. So that was my own hubris. That was a dumb idea. But it would have been nice to have like a smaller portable thing that I could read books on and also do tablet things, but that's not a good idea unless I wanted to have both. But like I don't need to I don't need to spend that much money. It needs to replace things.
Yeah.
I don't need more Apple products that need to be updated and maintained and charged all the time.
Yeah. And I'll say that there are times I look at the iPad mini and I think, ooh, that would be actually really nice for such and such purpose, or just in general. Like, an iPad mini is still a good product. It's just, it fits, I think, a relatively specific and narrow set of customers, whereas the other iPads are more general, I don't remember the word, but basically kind of designed for the largest audience. The majority of the people who want to get iPads are probably going to go for the larger size. But yeah, other than that, like, I think it all makes sense. I don't have any interest in e-readers myself, but other than that, like, I get it, and I probably would have made the same choices, I guess, if I wanted to.
I've had like I've used e-readers to some extent for like 15 years maybe. And I do like them, and I am trying to read more because it's better than doom scrolling, and can also be done on my phone. And I do still want to use Nook for books I buy because I don't want Amazon. I already had a Kindle at one point and I sold it. So I'm like, I don't need Amazon and more things. Which sucks because the Kindle is by far the best one, but I'm not gonna use it. So yeah, that's a me issue. So I was looking at maybe the new Nook. There's like a couple Android based e-ink readers that like might be good. And those you can, obviously I can put whatever app I want on those. Um, but definitely trying to read more. And also I found a better website for pirating ebooks, so I can get I get a couple. There was like a marketing book I wanted, but it doesn't seem to be sold digitally, so I did pirate that one. I'm sorry, to the publisher, but you should have made it possible for me to buy it.
Corbin's sailing the very wordy seas.
Yeah, yeah. Don't look at what my NAS is doing 24 hours a day. It's definitely not
mostly
running.
sharing Linux images.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Of course it is.
Let's just pretend, okay? And putting that VPN to good use.
Yeah, it's just a VPN for the Linux ISOs. Because I need more privacy while doing that.
Hey, you could. There's someone out there that is absolutely spying on which version of Linux you use. So, yes, you do.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Is that I can't really think of anything else to add to that one. So
nope, that was just me making a dumb decision. Although
I think
dumb.
not in you can return it. So
right, yeah, that is why I bought it, and I bought it at Target, so I could I didn't even have to mail it back. I just gave it to the back to the person. So yeah, I was kind of hoping it would work for the use case I want, but it absolutely did not. So, and once again, I've been fooled by the lure of the small electronic. I need to stop doing this because it doesn't work every time.
Well, yeah, that's pretty much always true.
Yeah,
it's amazing how much the small electronics just looks so neat and so perfect.
They're so cool. It's an iPad, but it almost fits in like cargo short pocket.
That is a criteria we should all search, or we should all be looking for. All right. So yeah. Anyway, cool. I think that about wraps it up for today. Is there anything you feel like pitching, plugging, or otherwise mentioning?
Yeah, I'll put this in the chat again. This is the channel where I'm uploading the fun video edits. You can go subscribe to that. I don't know when I'm gonna do another one, but I'll do one eventually.
It's first and last is already up there.
Yeah. I need to not do one for a while because I accidentally worked on this too long, like several nights in a row, and it really messed up my sleep schedule for a week. So I need to not. I need, for my own good, I need to not do one for a while because I get too hyper focused, and it's like, ah, shit, it's 3:00 in the morning.
Been there. Yeah, totally get it. Okay. Well, cool. So if let's see. Thanks everyone for coming by, hanging out, being in the chat and conversation. Of course, huge thanks to supporters of the channel, Austin Carson, David Diablo, and Kirby Mermaid. Y'all are awesome and really help out the channel. And for those that would like to support the channel, there are links down below to Cash App, Streamlabs, and Patreon. Any little bit helps. Let's see. I will be back this weekend with some Overwatch and Marvel Rivals. That's Saturday and Sunday. Roughly about the same-ish time. Give or take, mostly a little bit late. And we will, I believe, both be back next week on Wednesday for another RambleCast. So, in the meantime, I hope everyone has an excellent rest of the week, a great weekend, and, hopefully better stuff coming in the near future, because yikes to the present. But with that, I hope you all an excellent night, and, well, good night, everybody.